But I want to say this tonight. I want to encourage you before you take a seat. That if at the moment you're feeling a little bit weak, or you're feeling like you've lost your strength, or you're feeling like life's been a bit tough, I want to encourage you in a good place tonight. Because I believe that our God is the restorer of strength. He did it in my life, and I believe He can do it in yours. And never forget the little ingredient of our church, of a Heart House, or what we're trying to do, is it's not just us that's doing this. God's involved with the whole thing. And if you're encouraged by that tonight, you can take a seat and put up for our band as they take a seat. Also, look, I'm going to be preaching part 5 of Inside Out tonight. And I'm going to be honest with you, when I was trying to put this message together this week, I actually had silence from God. And if anyone can relate to that, where they've tried to be with God, they're trying to get to know God, they're trying to, rely on God to speak to you or do something at the end of your bed or something, that sometimes we think, okay, if He's not around, He must not like me and He must not want to be my friend. And this week I was like, God, I've got to preach a sermon by Sunday, so you need to come through with something to preach. And I'm not even joking. By Friday, I was like, I'm in a lot of trouble. I don't have anything together. And so I just wanted to just start tonight with this topic. God was quite silent with me this week. And I'll get a little bit more into that a bit later of what happened with that process. And I just wanted to, go from there. But I'm going to read out of Hebrews 4:14 tonight for us to read together and to understand this scripture. And it says in this scripture, it's quite an amazing thing. It says, therefore, since we have a great high priest who ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. Now, I don't know about you, but one of the craziest things I realized as I got older is that most people you run into, now I know we're doing the inside out, we're talking about the in of the heart, how we find grace on the inside, how we find healing on the inside, but the inside out, the majority of people that don't know God, the first thing they meet or the first Jesus they see is the Jesus in us. There's not this thing where they go, all right, well, Christians can just carry on however they want or hurt people, whatever, and then God will mysteriously enter the end of the bed. I believe God uses people and the way we treat people for Him to get to know them. And so in Hebrews, it's just stunning. It's like, hey, if you're going to say this, if you're going to be part of this, you're going to be part of God and part of following Jesus, then hold true to this. Be serious about this. Be in all of this with all you've got. And then it says in verse 15, for when the high priest, who, the Jesus we're talking about, says in 15, for when the high priest understands and he comes along and he improvises and he empathizes with our weakness. But we have all been tempted and we have all fallen short and we've all made mistakes. Yet, He hasn't. So, let us approach God and come to Him with confidence, His grace and His throne of grace, so that we may receive mercy and He can help us in a time of need. One of the fascinating things with Inside Out, we've been talking about what it looks like on the outside compared to what it is on the inside, and we've discovered all these different things. And I believe that as believers, or those that are looking to know God or find God, I do believe that in your workplace, in your schools, wherever you go, the reality is your friends, your neighbors, your family, everyone, the first Jesus they meet is you. The way you love your neighbor, the way you love your enemy, the way you treat people with kindness, the way that we would do anything to help somebody that's in need, that is the first Jesus anyone meets. It's not about getting to church and hoping they find God. Sometimes the first glimpse of God they will ever meet is the way you treat them when no one's around. And so I just wanted to start this message off tonight with one of my first points. And that is, distance on the outside distorts the detail on the inside. And what I mean by that is, the further you are away from someone or something, the less you know about them and the less you know about it. I really believe distance on the outside distorts the detail on the inside. The further we are away from something, the further back we are away from that person over there, the less detail we know. And so, for me, I don't know if anyone remembers the first time they bought a brand new shiny iPhone. And I'm preaching to only iPhone users tonight, because if you are an Android user, there's the door. In fact, we should pray really quick for all those Android users, those that have fallen short, God, that went and bought an Android. May they find hope and peace. You know, I always wanted to run a church that when people gave their life to God, we hand them an iPhone. We're like, you found God, here's an iPhone. But I remember getting my first iPhone. I saved up for it for a long time. I was like working really hard, and I went and lined up, because back in the day, people used to actually line up for these damn things. There was like a line and a red carpet, and people would get these phones. And I remember getting the phone, and I would literally treat it like better than my own children right now. Like, I look after my children pretty well. I think I did a good job. But this phone, and anyone that has a new phone, it was like my little baby. I was polishing it. I put it in its case. I bought the screen. Am I alone on this? You're all looking at me like, this guy's crazy. No, we all protect our phones better than our own family. Let's all admit it. And I remember putting all this like stress into the phone and looking after it and polishing it and looking after it and trying to make it look good. And all of a sudden, just from using it, just from playing with it or doing stuff with the phone, it started to get scratches. It started to have blemishes. It started to break. It started to have problems. Put your hands up in this room. Currently, your phone's cracked right now. There's a crack down the screen of it. And it just started to erode. It started to not be the shiny once iPhone I bought. I mean, for Android users, it started off like that. No one got that joke. We bought our phones new. Yours already looked... Yeah, anyway, I'm not trying to divide us on that debate. But if you looked at me and you're like, hey, there's Sam. He's got his iPhone. He's on the phone. From your point of view, it still looked like an iPhone. But only I knew the details of the phone. It's like when we have a car. We see a car, we see someone driving the car, and it looks good. But when you get close enough to the car, you start to see the scratches. You see the dings. You see all the problems with it. I mean, anyone know right now that if you look at someone's phone, it looks like a normal phone, but you know the scratches. And you know the dings. And so the further we are away from something, and the further we are away from someone or something, the less we know. The less we know about what's going on in their hearts, the less we know about what their journey was, the less we know about what their mom or dad did to them, the less we know about the pain or the sickness or the things that went wrong with them. And so even though we're talking about an inside topic and it's the inside versus the outside, I believe in this place that none of us should ever judge somebody else's journey. It's like even other ministries and other churches and other, people that do other things. They might go to nightclubs. They might do a bunch of stuff in this world. They do a bunch of stuff that we don't understand. But the further we are out on the distance, the less we understand the detail. And the reality is a lot of people have some pretty bad details in their life. They've been hurt by people. They've been judged by people. They've been pushed around by people. And we can never be a church, I'm hoping that we're never a church that judges people from the outside. We accept people for who they are. That's their sexual preference. That's their understanding of God. Even if they're an atheist, we open our arms wide open and we say, you know what? I'm distanced from your hurt. I'm distanced from what you know. But I want to say this right now. You are welcome. Distance on the outside distorts the detail on the inside. If you're not willing to get close to someone, never judge them for their journey. Never judge them for what they've been through. Never judge them for how they talk, how they act, how they sing, how whatever they do, because distance distorts the outside from the inside. This goes both ways. We're in a generation right now which is hurting. It's a generation where we compare ourselves to other people. Social media has absolutely ramped this up. It's like we have our worst days. We have our worst moments. And we go onto Instagram or we go onto something, we see everyone just having a good old time. And that's the same thing. Distance distorts the detail. Sometimes people that post things on Instagram are the furthest thing away from happiness. But you will see the post, and you will compare the post to your own hurt, and you will compare the hurt, you will compare the thing online to your own suffering, and you will go, man, I'm so insecure about that. I could never be like them. I could never be a dad like that. I could never be a mum like that. I could never be like that. But here's the thing. Distance distorts the detail. And unless you're close to it, never judge anyone in the room and never compare yourself to anyone in the room. You've got to focus on what God can do with you. You know, this leads me into where the insight starts to get a bit more painful. We've talked about pain in our church. We talked about things that have happened on the inside out. And the second thing I want to talk about tonight is closeness on the inside causes cuts on the outside. You know, one of the most interesting things about people and about our church and about the world is the closer you are to someone, the higher potential they have of hurting you. So we got to understand that we can never judge somebody's story. We can never point the finger at anyone that's missed the mark. We can never say, well, look at them, the dirty sinners. We're all sinners. We're all broken. We've all made the mistakes. The only thing we have in common is actually our brokenness. And so we can't judge people from a distance. But the sad thing about life sometimes, and this is where I believe God comes into the conversation, is that sometimes the people we are closest to will hurt us the most. The closer you become to people, like no woman in this world could call me ugly and I wouldn't care about it. But if my wife said it, man, I'm up for days. Gym membership that morning, like. The people that are closest to us hurt us. And I've started to realize that closeness on the inside causes cuts on the outside. Let me explain. I often hear stuff all the time about people that have gone through some stuff. And I go, man, I feel sorry for them. It's like we can go to, I don't know, take it somewhere, someone might have got cancer or someone might have got sick or something would have happened or someone died. And you kind of go, yeah, I feel sorry for them, or, I'm loving you, send them a Facebook message, I love you, got you. But when it happens to your own dad, or when your own mum left you, or it's your dad that didn't come home, or it's your wife that walked out and never came back, the closeness creates cuts. And then what happens is we see the cuts on the outside. We start to go, well, that person's always bitter. It's a cut. That person's always insecure or angry. It's an outside cut. Inside closeness causes outside cuts. It's okay if, that my friend's mum and dad had an affair, but when it's your mum and dad, that hurts. It's okay if we were a church that's like, oh, well, it's not, that person over there, they got bullied or they got picked on. Until it's your own son, until it's our own brother, until it's our own family. And so the product of this, of the inside hurt, becomes outside cuts. And so I'm bringing this up. I don't want to make you all depressed tonight. I want to go, oh, I can't hang around people. I want you to understand how the process works. And our church needs to understand how the process works. If someone is insecure, don't go, well, they're insecure, let's get away from that person. You look at it and go, what did someone do to that person? If someone comes in here angry, and they're always angry, it's not Mr. Angry to us. It's like, who hurt you? How can I comfort you? There's people right now involved in our church and people that aren't involved in our church, and they are isolating themselves. That's not because they just want to isolate themselves. That's because someone or something hurt them so deeply they cannot even comprehend coming into contact with another person. Inside closeness causes outside cuts. You ever meet people that are sad all the time? You go, oh, meet God, he'll make you happy. No, meeting God isn't the reason why they're sad. It's because broken people exist, and when we get close to people that are broken, we have hurt. All of us. I'm telling you now, only the closest people to me have hurt me the most. And so I want you to understand this, because when you see people with issues, and you see them with cuts, and you see them with wounds, and you see them with sorrow, and you see them with wounded souls, be a church that embraces them, hugs them. If anyone in this room's angry and you're even part of this church, give them grace. Let it slide. Because, he was saying this, in Hebrews, it was just straight there. It said, all of us that have fallen, may us all approach with confidence God's grace of throne. Because he understands our weakness. And so right now I believe in this place and online, if you're carrying outside cuts, it probably came from the closest people to you. And I just want to say that we as a church, we want to empathize with that. And we want to just let you know that even though people might have thrown you away because of your dysfunction or your cuts or your trust issues or your isolation or your insecurities or your pain or however you cope with that we understand that they're inside hurts that create outside cuts. And here at Heart House, we believe you can start the journey of mending that inside hurt and allow the process of healing to start. And the first thing I recommend anyone does, because we're not here to judge, is you've got to forgive those that have done wrong by you. Do you want me to repeat it again? You want to remove the outside cuts from your life where everyone knows you as this person or that person. You have to start the healing process, and that's forgiving those that have done wrong by you. Then God can start to restore those cuts. Otherwise, you walk around with your hurt on the inside, and everyone knows you're covered with cuts. They'll say, he's insecure all the time. That guy's always angry. That guy's always isolated. That guy never comes around. That guy's out of community. This chick never does that. She's always comparing. They're your cuts. They're a product of the hurt on the inside. I was talking to a few people this week, and it was something that I experienced. And that silence on the outside isn't a sign that God's not with you on the inside. Sometimes silence just happens. I talk to people all the time and they go, I want to know God, but I don't hear anything from him. I want to believe in God, but I don't see anything from him. And then I'm like trying to come up with this really cool answer for them. Until then I, as a believer, as a pastor, have a week of silence. And I'm like, God, did I need to pray more? Did I need to read my Bible more? Did I need to do stuff? And some of the things we say is, well, maybe God's silent because I didn't pray enough. Maybe God's silent because I didn't read enough. And even people that don't believe, you might be saying, maybe God's not in my life, or he's silent because I'm not good enough. And we've got to be so careful as a church, because we will start to rearrange what it means to believe in God. And then we'll send a message to the world that also rearranges what it means to follow God. And the reality is, there is nothing you can do that moves God. There's no amount of reading. There's no amount of praying. There is no amount of anything you can do that will bring God's favor in your life, except for one thing. And that is faith that he is God. It sounds really simple. It sounds easy until the silence creeps in. But here's what I figured out, that God doesn't work off guarantees. He works off faith. And faith is the gap between what we do know and what we don't know. And sometimes in your life it's just silent. This week, I was like, God, come on. And it was just quiet. And I know for a fact that there's people that don't even believe in God. They've had that moment where they thought, God's not around because I'm this terrible person, or I'm this sinful person, or I've made mistakes, or if you knew what I did. But God doesn't work off our behavior, and He doesn't remove Himself for what we do. He's activated by faith. I'll biblically back this in a minute in case you're looking at me like, what are you talking about? An indicator that God's not in your life is not whether you're well behaved or you're good or you've done all the right, tick the boxes. It's whether you say one day that I'm going to have faith, whether it's loud or it's quiet or it's perfect or it's imperfect, or the people that I thought were for me are now against me, or they are for me. We start to have a faith like, and this is what God says, I believe faith moves God. And I don't believe you have to be a full-time believer to not be pushing in faith. You could be new tonight, or you could be online, you can say, you know what, tonight I'm going to have faith. Faith that maybe there is a God. Faith that maybe there is a God that loves me so unconditionally. Maybe there's faith that a God can use me for something greater. And so my message is, even when it is silent, and even when we can't see it, I have faith when it's loud, but I have faith when it's silent. I have faith when it's good, but I also have faith when it's bad. I have faith when it's ugly, and I also have faith when I don't understand. Because in the past couple of years, I've seen so many people lose their faith because it was silent. But our faith was never based, or our Christian, the gospel, what we do as a church, was never based around whether we could hear God or not. It was based around faith. You know, listening to God 24/7 is such an outside thing. It's like, as long as I can hear you, I'll follow you. But an inside thing is, God, I'm trusting you with this. And when I can't see it, and when I can't hear it, and when I'm not sure if you're real or not, then in faith I will still get up and I'll say, God, I'm going to follow you anyways. And so in Ephesians, we find this beautiful verse that brings this into what God was trying to say. And it says here, for it is by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not from yourselves, it's actually a gift from God. You ready for this, church? You gotta hear this. This is the church. This is the future of what we're gonna do. Not by works, so that no one can boast. For we are God's handiwork, and He created us in Jesus Christ to do good works, which God had actually prepared for us in advance. And so the first thing you need to know, whether you believe in God or not tonight, you need to know that even if it's silent, and even if you don't have the proof, that He still thinks you're beautiful. And He still created you with such design and such purpose. And He had you in mind. And even though in a distance, people can't see the scratches, God still loves you. And even though you've gotten close to people, or your family's let you down, or your wife's let you down, or your husband, or something's happened, God still loves you. Because you're His handiwork. And once we realize this, once we go, oh my gosh, I'm loved by God regardless of the outside appearance. And even if He feels silent, and even I can't hear Him, I know that He's created something for me. Then I can't help but to work for Him. I can't help but to do good for Him. I can't help but to serve Him. I can't help but to get activated for Him. I can't help but to bless my neighbors. I can't help but to love people in their worst moments. I can't help to hug those with depression, because when I realize this, I work. I've seen so many people over the last couple of years walk away from church, walk away from serving, walk away from giving, because the silence became loud on the outside. And you might be saying, well, Sam, that's bit counterproductive because you've been saying the inside out. What's going on tonight? What are you switching it up? I'll tell you why. People ask me the question, they say, well, Sam, if it's all about the inside, it's all about God, it's all about me and God and my heart, then I don't need to read the Bible, and I don't need to go to church, and I don't need to give. I don't need to volunteer. I don't need to pray, because why pray? It's silent anyway. I'll just go back to my old ways. I'll just start sinning again. I'll just move away from this, and this is what happened over COVID. I'll just go back to what I used to do because it's all at the inside, right? But here's the reality of this series. Is faith moves God. But His grace moves us. Not by works. I know that I don't have to read the Bible or be good, and God still loves me. I know I don't have to come to church, and God still loves me. I know that I don't have to be part of community, and God still loves me. But then how do I move Him in my life? And it's you don't have to work. It's by faith. So when He's silent, when He's not there, and when you feel like He's not there, it's faith in Him moves God. And that's how the inside works. But how the outside works is His grace moves us. You know, I said last week, we're not good people doing bad things. We're bad people that have forgotten God's mercy in our lives. And all of us have fallen short. There's no one greater or better than anyone in this room. There's no hierarchy of Christians and non-Christians and the world versus church. That doesn't exist in our world. Our world is a bunch of broken people that got together and said, God, I trust and I have faith that through this storm, you can do something great with my life. And then He moved on us. He showed us His grace. He showed us His love. He showed us that He forgave us for everything we've ever done. He showed us this. And then grace moved me. And something went wrong where we stopped getting into church. We stopped getting community because we're like, God, you're not moving anymore. Why are you so silent? It's not, you weren't working hard enough. It wasn't you weren't praying hard enough. It wasn't that you weren't doing enough for Him. It's because you forgot His grace on your life. And whether you're a believer or non-believer tonight, you need to know that He has unlimited grace for your life. But it's not by our works He has moved. It's by the grace on us is why we are moved. I don't love my enemies out of duty. I loved my enemies because God loved me. It's grace that moves me because faith moves Him. And when the inside aligns with His heart, the outside becomes activated. And as the band comes, 3 things we need to understand about tonight. Distance distorts the detail. There is people next to you, there's people online right now, and you have no idea of the hurt they carry. You have no idea of the pain they carry. You have no idea of the journey they walked. So it's not our job to judge because it's distorted. We don't actually know what's going on in their lives. We embrace and we hug and we love and we say no matter what's going on, no matter how bad it looks, no matter if you're atheist, no matter what you got going in your life, we embrace you. Because we're not going to let distance distort the detail. We're not judging you from the outside. We are looking at the inside of what God can do with your life. But know this as you become closer to people. Because we're all broken. And there's people in your life that are already close to you. You've had people right now you feel like, well, they betrayed me. And they ripped me off. And they left when they should have been there. And they did the wrong thing by me. And they deserve to have payback. And they deserve to be gossiped about. And they deserve to be pointed and judged at. The closest people will hurt you the most. But that's why God said, hey, all of you, you're all weak. You've all fallen short. How about all of you come back to my throne? because I understand this. Jesus is like, I know what it's like to be betrayed. I know what it's like to hurt. I know this. I get this. I understand this. Come to my throne. And the healing process begins. Because the first thing he will say is, that person that ripped you off, forgive him. Cuts start to fall into this place. Anyone that has an issue, whether it's gossiping, it's brokenness, it's anger, it's bitterness, it's whatever they have, it's a byproduct of the inside hurt. It's their cuts they wear. Yeah, people go, oh, that person doesn't trust me. Yeah, because someone they trusted let them down. And so they're carrying this cut. That person's really insecure. Yes, because someone hurt them on the inside out, so now they're insecure about the outside. We can't use the outside cuts as an indicator of the inside hurt. So come to God. He will say, forgive them, and as the cuts heal, cuts will fall to the ground. People will become more built, more secure, more strong, more wise, more loving, more passionate, more gracious to the people in the world around them, because God starts to heal the cuts from the inside out. And the last thing is, faith isn't a guarantee that everything will be perfect. Following God isn't this perfect, everything's going to be perfect. Sometimes it's silent. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's easy, and sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's joy, and sometimes it's sadness, and sometimes it's all the other emotions of life. But faith moves God, and His grace moves me. So I love my neighbor. I love my schoolyard. I love my workplace. I love my enemies, because when God's grace fell on me, then His grace has to fall on the people around me, because that's how this thing works. So when you're silent, get back up. When you're sad, stand back up. When you're falling short, get back on the horse. When you feel like you haven't served, get back into serving. When you feel like God can accept you, know tonight that He can accept you right where you're at. Get back on there. Faith moves Him, but His grace moves us. Be a people that goes, wow, because of His grace, I got to tell all my friends about God. Because of His grace, I got to tell all my family about God. Because of His grace, I'm going to do everything for the people around me. His grace is enough. And you are enough for His grace. Come on, stand with me tonight. God, we just pray over this place tonight. Those that are wounded, those that are hurt, those that are broken, God, that you bring in to bring healing in this place. And for those that don't believe in you, those that don't know you, give them a comfort sign right now that in the silence you love them right where they're at. Nothing they can do or can't do can push you away, God. You're ready and you're waiting. So we thank you for that over our church tonight. You're a good God. We're just trying to be good people with your grace.